Alrighty guys, how's it going? Daybreaker Rein here, coming to you through Video Scope with another episode of Castlevania Circle of the Moon. And this time, we are going to be taking on the Machine Tower, I believe. That's the next part of the game. And as far to my knowledge, I don't think the boss in this area lets you cheese it with the Wind Wave attack as much as I wish. I know it does do a lot of damage and it could make the fight easier. That's neither here nor there. I guess we'll have to wait and see when we get there. Am I going the right way? I should probably get the map coverage anyway, so yes, I am technically going the right way. Ooh! New card. Madragon. Or Madragona. That should give me the ability to use Rose Whip properly without having to use the glitch to be able to not be able to use it another way. I mean, I know it is kind of cheap to use that the DSS glitch, but it's so helpful. Because like I've explained, it is really hard to get those cards. Like, it's all random, it's all based on your luck stat, and while it's easier to get the cards when you're in thief mode, that's definitely a given. I could just keep it there, I guess. Because in thief mode, your luck is like ridiculously high at the beginning of the game, and then it maxes out before you're even level 99. I've only ever played through the thief mode once. It's tough. Like, all the other modes, while they have their perks, are really tough. Okay, I'm totally going the wrong way. It's not supposed to go this way yet. Or, well, I mean, can if I want to go fight the fire armor, but there's really no point to, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back. Going the wrong way. But the magician mode, well, it gives you high MP regeneration, and then it also gives you all the DSS cards right at the beginning of the game. Your health, your attack, and your defense they all suffer for the heightened stats, much like with shooter mode. Shooter mode's the same way. It gives you all the perks of the reduced cost of the sub-weapons. It gives you more hearts, like, per level than typical. It gives you more hearts per heart upgrade. And while beneficial, you suffer again with lowered attack, lowered defense. I don't think your health is lowered, if I remember right, which is better. Fighter mode is awesome. Fighter mode is cool because you are just a powerhouse. You're a tank. I mean, you just wreck everything because your attack stat is like ridiculously high. The only downside is that you don't get the ability to use DSS at all in that mode. You can't use it. The cards won't drop, as far to my knowledge, and probably the only way that you'd be able to use DSS in fighter mode would probably be to cheat the system and use like a action replay or like a Game Shark or something like that. Okay, go there. Although it would be interesting because, I mean, you do still get MP, and you still can get MP upgrades, which is kind of weird. So I mean, you technically could, I guess, but I mean, I wouldn't really see the point because your attack power is just so ridiculously high. You pretty much, you can take the hits way better because your defense is higher. And I just remembered I got a new armor. Okay. Not worth it for just 5 more attack points. I actually was playing Magician mode. I had just barely got here. I was actually at the next place after this. But I figured for the sake of the playthrough, so I'm not handicapping myself, Because again, I've only ever played through Magician, like the other modes, once. And Fighter mode was the mode that I really enjoyed the most, just because of how powerful your character becomes. That you don't need the DSS. Although it would have been nice to be able to use it, even if it was like at a reduced power than what it typically is or something like that. But you know, typically, like if you look, I think their thought process was in the mindset of like D&D's per se. Like a fighter class is not going to use magic, like at all. Like, and if they learn magic, that's kind of weird. I mean, I guess you could cross-class somewhere down the line, but it would be unusual for a fighter to use magic. Because, I mean, it's like, why would they need it? They're a powerhouse, they're a tank, they don't need the extra, you know, rituals and stuff to have to boost themselves up. So I guess you could kind of look at it in that regard. It's kind of a shame, too. While they gave you the 4 different modes that you could play the game as Nathan, there was actually supposed to be a mode that let you play it as Hugh. But for whatever reason, I think it's one of those weird things where, like, hackers have found it. Oh, please don't tell me. I believe, like, hackers got into the game files and found remnants of what was supposed to be being able to play as Hugh, but for whatever reason it was cut from the game pre-production. Before the final decision of how the game was going to be, and they swapped it with the ability to do the different modes, like Magician, Thief, Shooter, and Fighter. While I'm fine with that, because I mean it is, you know, it gives you a lot of replay value, so you can play the game so radically different, as opposed to how you played it the previous run. I am a little disheartened because I do like the ability to play as other characters. You know, they kind of introduced that in Symphony. You know, Symphony was kind of like the first game to really set the bar for that, because it lets you play as Richter. And then in other iterations of Symphony, such as the Japanese version on Sega Saturn, and then the later Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles, you were able to play as Maria as well in both those. So I'm always kind of a fan of that. Like, I know that in Harmony of Dissonance, you get to play as Maxim, another one of the characters that's in the game. And then in Aria of Sorrow, you get the ability to play as Julius. And I really like that, you know, like, I like the ability to play as, like, even if they play so radically different, like, the thing about, you know, most of these optional characters is that they don't have, like, a built-in level-up system, so you can't, the only way that you can upgrade them is, like, through health upgrades and stuff like that. You can't, ever, you know, level them up, which, I am actually really happy that, when the DS games came out, Portrait of Ruin, Dawn of Sorrow, and Order of Ecclesia, not in that order, but they offered all these different modes to play as different characters that actually gained level ups, so it actually felt more like you were actually playing, you know, the legit game, just as a different character. Portrait of Ruin had a bunch of characters you could play as, which was so cool. Like, you got to play as not only the 2 vampire sisters that were in the game, you were also able to play as Richter and Maria, which is cool, and then the Axe Armor, and I want to say that there's another character I might be missing, I could be wrong. But yeah, it's freaking awesome that you got to play as, like, all these different characters in Portrait of Ruin. In Dawn of Sorrow, there were different characters. You got to play as Julius again, in Julius mode, teaming up with Yoko and Alucard, actually. Which is really cool. But you got to switch between them. They weren't all separate modes. Although, I would have loved the separate mode where you could have just played as Alucard and had all of his abilities, and you could upgrade him like how you could in Symphony. That would have been amazing. I don't know if, per se, the DS would have been capable of such a thing. I don't see why not. I mean, I think games have come a long way. I mean, if you can add optional character modes in Game Boy Advance games, in the Castlevania Game Boy Advance games, then I don't see how it wouldn't be unfeasible to rework the game to where you could play as another character, but still level them up and equip different stuff. Like, I think it would have been a really cool testament, and probably would have made me love Dawn of Sorrow even more. Like, I like Dawn of Sorrow, but it's definitely not my favorite out of the trilogy. I think Order of Ecclesia probably took that cake, because I like how Order of Ecclesia went back to a more traditional style, artwork style. I loved Shinoa as a character. It was, again, like, probably the second time only where a female character was the lead role, which to me is just awesome. I just love playing as female characters like I do. I think it's awesome when a story can be centered around them and they're not just on the side. Like, Yoko was cool, but she wasn't super strong. Like, I think Maria probably was a lot stronger character-wise and just mechanic-wise than Yoko. Like, Yoko had some cool stuff, like where if you attack with her melee weapon, she gains health back, which was a nice feature. I think I ended up playing as Alucard the majority of the time. Like, it just sucks because, like, you know, Julius and Alucard get, like, some of the cooler abilities, and Yoko doesn't really get a whole lot of the cooler abilities. She has really powerful magic, and I think they kind of atoned her in Harmony of Dissonance, because, or I mean, not Harmony of Dissonance, Harmony of Despair, the multiplayer Castlevania game, because she plays really well, and she's super strong in that version, because just magic users in general are just freaking broken in Harmony. Like, I think every character, by the time you get the best equipment, is just freaking broken. But what was cool about her is that she had all of her abilities right away. You didn't have to go out the extra mile to go get her abilities. So it really made it a lot easier to play as Yoko, as opposed to some of the other characters. Because, like, the Belmonts, you have to gain their abilities. You have to go and find them. You have to go find their sub-weapons. You have to go... of course, they always start out with, like, I think the dagger, which is freaking worthless by the time you get the other sub-weapons, because the other sub-weapons are just so much more powerful. There are a lot of balance issues in that game. Like, I love Harmony of Despair, and I think it was a great testament to what could be a multiplayer Castlevania game. Like, I never thought I could, you know, run through the halls of Castlevania with friends. As I was kind of disheartened by the character choice. I would have loved to see more characters. I don't know if it caught on, or if it just had enough of a following to really support other characters, because originally the game was Xbox 360 exclusive, which I think was kind of a detriment to what could have potentially been a better fan base for that game. And the main reason I say that is because when you ostracize the market when you make a game exclusively for one console. And I know that exclusives will always have their place, and it's more enticement for people to go buy said console just so that they have a chance to play said game. But that's it shouldn't be that way. Like, I don't think that one game should define a console, and I don't think Harmony of Despair really defined the 360, but I mean, it was exclusive to the 360. And I think that was a huge detriment to it, because it took quite a while for it to show up on PSN, and now granted, PSN kind of got lucky because Yoko and Julius were actually DLC characters, and when you bought the game through PSN, you got both those characters for free and one of the DLC maps. You got Chapter 7, I believe. You still had to buy all the other stuff, which I eventually did. The only thing that I did not buy was Getsu Fuma, which I guess I get why that character's in the game, but that was the only character I didn't buy. I was disheartened that Simon, yet again, was stuck as his 8-bit counterpart. Harmony of Dissonance had an optional mode where you could play as Simon Belmont in Boss Rush, and it was his 8-bit sprite. And I get the limitations of a Game Boy Advance game, so it was kind of acceptable in that and nostalgic. But like for Harmony of Despair, I really felt that they could have included his reworked sprite, either take his sprite from the MSX version of Castlevania, or his redone sprite for the arranged version of the MSX Castlevania that was on Castlevania Chronicles. With him with the red hair and everything like that. I think like an HD sprite would have been amazing. Or hell, like I would have even been fine with the Super Nintendo sprite. Like, in Contra 4, surprisingly another Konami game, in Contra 4, you get the ability to play as other characters. They don't have any sort of special thing to them other than that they're just another character that you can play the game as. They all play the same, they all do the same stuff, they all get the same upgrades. But you get to play, one of the character unlocks that you can get for the game is you can play as the characters from Contra 3 on Super Nintendo as their actual Super Nintendo sprites. So if they could do something like that in a DS game, I don't see why they couldn't have done something like that in an HD Castlevania game, you know? So I was kind of disheartened that it was his 8-bit sprite. Like, the dumb thing is like you do get some sub weapons that are in the 8-bit style, but not all of them are in the 8-bit style. So it kind of almost like defeats the purpose. Like you have to go out of your way to get separate sub weapons. Like I think it's only the dagger and the axe, and I want to say they called the boomerang the cross. I think you could get all those as retro, but like all the other weapons, you can still use the HD version of the weapons, which is kind of silly. It looks silly when you have this like 8-bit character launching weapons that are in higher resolution than he is. But that could just be me, you know. I'm sure some people definitely like the nostalgia factor. And I know that that's how a lot of people know Simon Belmont. Like, I know that Castlevania Chronicles is a sought-after title because it's rather expensive. Ooh, yay, new card. Okay. I am gonna try to cheese it. So, what is this one? That one, I think. I hope. I could be wrong. No, that wasn't it. I think it's that. Yeah, see, it doesn't do nearly the damage that you would hope it would do. Oh, that's why I hate this boss fight, because he can heal. Oh! Come on. Just die, please. There we go. I don't know what it is. I always get here and I always get 2 level ups. Hugh, are you alright? What are you doing here? Are you trying to take my glory? What? What are you talking about? I just want to save Master. You're in the way. I will defeat Dracula myself, and then... Hugh? I like how he runs the other way where there's no feasible exit. Damn it. Kick boots. Jump against walls for extra height. Put forward a special button to execute. So you could go, wah! I honestly think that that's probably like one of the coolest things that like in any Castlevania I've ever seen, where you can like wall bounce pretty much. I really wish they would have added that in like another Castlevania, but like no other Castlevania has ever added that, unfortunately. Alrighty, guys. Well, we are definitely at the 20-minute mark, so thankfully I was able to get through the whole machine tower and beat the boss and everything, get the new upgrade. So next, we will be heading back through the machine tower, through the Abyss Stairway, to the Eternal Corridor. So until then, guys, this has been Daybreaker Rein, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Take it easy, guys.